Now listen closely, everyone, because I will be telling you the story of the end. A long, long time ago, so long ago that there was no one left to remember it ever happened, there was a place called the End. Many different species lived there together in harmony. Endermans and Elytrians thrived in this dimension, visiting the overworld for trading and adventures. And they lived in peace. But one day, a being called the Ender Dragon appeared. No one knew where it came from or what it wanted. It occupied the End, terrorizing its citizens, threatening the peace of the overworld as well. Scared of this threat, the inhabitants of the overworld sealed the entrance to the End, cutting off all communications. Now Endermen and Elytrians were trapped, far away from home, with no way to return, while knowing that their friends and that their family were suffering under the Ender Dragon. For a long time it was unknown to the overworld how terrible the Ender Dragon's ruling truly was, and it didn't bother most of the beings living in the overworld. But the Endermen and Elytrians, who had barely managed to get out of the End before it was sealed, begged for anyone to help save their kin. But no one listened. No one wanted to provoke the dragon. They went as far as to destroy every single stronghold, blowing them up and burning all evidence of the End ever existing. Soon, they hoped, it would be forgotten. And maybe their plan could have worked. The Endermen and Elytrians grew scarce around the world, preferring to live away from who once were their friends. The new generations only ever heard about the origin in stories, while being taught how terrible the Ender Dragon was. Many even believed the stories to be fake, to scare them or teach them some sort of lesson. So it continued for a good 100 years, but one day a message made it through. A message straight from the End. It appeared that an Enderman had managed to pass a message while sacrificing themselves. It was a singular red disc, the audio distorted, and it fell into the hands of a group of Elytrians who were still trying to free the End. And as the elder, maybe the last Elytrian who still knew the End personally, heard one of their old friends speak of the horrors they had to endure every day, he swore to avenge him. Because a war had broken out shortly after the portal was sealed. Elytrians were fighting against the dragons, and the dragon had paired up with shulkers. All while they tried to save the Endermen who were manipulated by the dragon. As the elder heard his friend talk about all the family they lost, how in the last assault only half a dozen Elytrians made it out alive, he realized that there would be no more Elytrians left in the End, that it was maybe already too late to try and save them. Enraged by this, the elder took off to the last stronghold left unharmed. At least, that is what he believed. But over the course of those 100 years past, even that stronghold was destroyed. All they could do now was preserve the information they had, hoping that maybe, in the future, someone would find the discs again. Someone strong enough to free the End and avenge his fallen friends. It was selfish and cowardly to burden someone else, but the old elder was already old and weak. So he hid the disc together with instructions on how to find the stronghold and break the seal of the portal. Thousands of years passed, and so did the elder and all generations who might still possess some knowledge of the End. Even the Endermen, who could not die, forgot about the End since they were cut off from its energy. But then, a young Elytrian who grew up on a set of floating island found a disc while adventuring the Nether. A strange red disc, old, almost completely broken. As they listened to this ancient relic, horror overcame them. Then, during the long silence after the disc stopped playing, anger and a sense of determination. They could find that stronghold and enter that dimension called the end. They would, no matter what. And with that began their long journey, returning out of the isolated life they had led up to that point. That their entire kind had led for what felt like forever. Trading with villagers and piglins for the ender pearls they needed, not wanting to hurt the endermen, who they now felt a very strong connection to, even stronger than before. They even got back in contact with the inhabitants of the Nether, re-establishing relationships that were destroyed as a result of the war. Nothing would stand in their way. They were going to free the End, the way it should have happened thousands of years ago. After what seemed like endless preparation, they stood before the portal, with the Ender Eyes in hand. They didn't know what to expect. How would it feel, being home? What would it look like? With trembling hands, they placed the eyes in the portal frames and put their pumpkin helmet on. And the end was not what they had expected. It was dark and cold. There were no trees or anything green. Instantly they knew that wasn't what their home was supposed to look like. The war and the Ender Dragon had destroyed the land. When the dragon was defeated, they would start rebuilding. And with that, they went to kill the dragon. And they came close to dying a few times, but finally, they did it. With one last shot of their bow, the dragon was defeated, and the End was finally free. More portals opened up, signaling. The seal had been broken, and the End was connected with the overworld once again. The Endermen could return now, no longer being manipulated by the dragon, and with that they could also take off the pumpkin helmet and explore some of what should have been their home. But all that greeted them was more dead stone and corrupted flowers growing into the sky. As they found one of their old cities, they were hesitant to explore it. Even there, all colors were gone. All that was left was the purple corruption from the dragon's breath. They fought through the city and came to a floating ship, but what they found there stopped them dead in their tracks. All the confidence and satisfaction from their win shattered, washed away as a single tear rolled down their face. They stood in front of a pair of wings, obvious signs of violence showing how they were separated from their previous owner. The young Elytrian shivered, checking their wings, making sure they were still there. They could feel the pain of their ancestors, the torture they must have gone through. They could no longer stand to be in that dimension. As they took the wings off the wall, they promised to build a memorial, a temple for all the fallen Elytrians, to honor them, to remind people. So they left the End as quickly as they could while carrying the broken wings. For now they would leave, but they knew they would come back, to repair what was broken, to bring back life. Back on their floating islands, they started construction of a temple, made out of shining white quartz so it would be seen from miles away. They placed all relics they had found there and added some of their own equipment that got them through the fight. And then they started to build more islands. They added places for visitors to stay. Until they felt ready to go back to the End, it was all they could do. And so they continued to gather resources so they could rebuild the End to what it might have been like before.